And here we are, back at it again, looking at Book 10 of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Alright, what did you guys think of the book?
This one started with this idea that you're good enough, but I kind of felt there was a caveat to that. Like, you're good enough so long as you're trying. And that might bring up the question of, well, if you're trying, like, what's the goal, or what's the ruler that you're trying against? So maybe as long as you're trying against your goal, you're good enough. Like, if you don't put any effort into it, maybe that's not good enough. But if you put some conscientious effort into your life, even if you don't meet your goal 100%, it's better than 0% effort. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. Like, it starts off and it's just like you are who you are and you have what's in your life, and accepting and knowing that. And then, I don't know, competing with who you were yesterday to constantly, well, I guess stoically, persist, right? It will be enough, and that there's nothing in this universe that comes upon you that you weren't built to handle. And I think that's a really cool concept.
Yeah, the way he communicates that is really beautiful, and he kind of focuses a bit more on sticking to your guiding principles.
Yeah, like, you are who you are, but if you don't stick to those guiding principles, maybe that's not really, maybe you're not quite who you are. So, like, if you have a goal of waking up at a certain time, taking a shower, shaving your face, putting on some clean clothes, you are who you are so long as you at least attempt to do some of those things. But if you just wake up late, don't take a shower, and you're stinky, and you got like half a beard growing that you don't conscientiously, you're not conscientiously trying to grow a beard, maybe you're not your full potential.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Marcus Aurelius worked hard to get the beard that he had.
All is right in the universe.
Yes.
And not to be vexed or excited about it either, to simply accept what comes and know that when you put in effort, you have done your best. And whatever your effort is that day, being mindful and accepting your nature and fighting against your nature to improve your nature and expand upon that is enough. And not, I don't know what the word was, shying away from being who you are, and knowing that the more mindful you are, the more you can grow.
I mean, he definitely says you are good enough the way you are, the way you're built. You are as nature built yourself. I'm not sure he specifically says so long as you're trying. I know he hints at that in other books, but like, take a drug addict, for example. If you are just drowning away your sorrows with alcohol or benzodiazepines or any drug that numbs you to the pain of life, it's not like unrational to want to numb the suffering that we all feel. But if you don't even try, if you just go straight to the bottle or straight to the pill, you're not really attempting to be who you could be. And even if you are a drug addict, I've dealt with this problem myself, that just because you're taking a drug doesn't necessarily mean you're failing, so long as you're conscientious of that, and maybe you're trying to wean yourself off of it to get back into the nature of things.
I see a lot of the time, like when I'm working with teenagers, especially who have drug addiction, like especially marijuana now as it's getting legalized in Canada, it's becoming more prevalent. And what they try to do is go cold turkey. And that's the opposite of what I say, like, if you are this person who wakes up in the morning and smokes weed and you're not happy with that, don't deny your nature. Just add to it, like, you can't, nature abhors a vacuum. If you're a weed addict, accept that and add to it so much that it becomes something that doesn't happen right away, and then eventually maybe it will disappear. Maybe it's meant to be, but don't pretend that you can just wake up tomorrow and you're a different man. Like there is no such thing as tomorrow. You've got the same emotions. You are who you are, and if you add to it, you'll become more.
Yeah, a big part of that is like, don't just take away, like if all you're doing all day is just smoking weed, don't just smoke less weed and expect to live better. You have to add more to that to replace what you're substituting in. Like instead of just waking up and going right to the bong, you read a chapter of the book that you're on or work out, and then you get high out of your mind. And you
Well,
make
exactly, like-
baby steps like that.
Like this is your coping tool, and if you wake up tomorrow and you can't have your coping tool and you haven't added any coping tool, guess what? You're gonna have a hard time coping because you don't have a coping tool. It's a pretty vicious circle.
Better yet, you should look at the negative effects of how it'll impact your life. If you continue this cycle over again, what's going to be the negative impact it will have on you? And just pay attention to what your body is trying to tell you.
Yeah, and pay attention to the habits that you're forming too.
And just ask yourself, is this activity doing anything proper? And if not, how can I change it?
Yeah, totally. Like, is this wholesome, and does this tell me at a subconscious level that I respect myself, that I love myself, and that I'm enough? And if the answer is no, add to it, and add to it with things that indicate to you that you love yourself. Like I tell people, brush your teeth at night, because it's not about self-care, it's about self-love. And if you don't know that that's what it is, that you deserve to have clean teeth, then it's not going to stick as a habit, because you're looking at it wrong. It's not, there's no obligation in life. There is life. That's just a fact. And if you want a subjectively happy experience, you're going to have to respect and love yourself.
I think another thing too is we focus on the why. Why does this happen? Why is this affecting me in many ways? Because that'll lead to multiple pathways. And instead, you should focus on the what. That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Like, if you get stuck in the why is my life so rough, you're going to be asking, like, when you ask yourself a question, your subconscious brain tries to find an answer for it. And if you don't think you're ruminating, but you do ask these questions, guess what? Your subconscious brain is processing 1,000,000 bits per second, and it is trying to find an answer when you could be saying, what could I add to my life? What could I do differently? What would I like to do? What would I like to choose to do that would bring happiness, healthiness, and wealthiness and wholesomeness to my life? Instead of why do I feel this way, it's what can I do now?
Yes, always working on what can you do. I had a quote written down here from book 10 that I wanted to share with you guys. If a man is mistaken, instruct him kindly and show him his error. But if thou art not able, blame thyself, or blame not even thyself. Whatever may happen to thee, it was prepared for thee from all eternity, and the implication of causes was from eternity spinning the thread of thy being, and of that which is instant to it. So what do you guys think of that?
It reminds me of this other quote. It's a Seneca quote, but it really ties in really well. The quote is, "It is another's fault if he be ungrateful, but it is mine if I do not give. To find one thankful man, I will oblige a great many that are not so." And it's that whole, like, give because you want to give, not to receive, and do what is in your nature, not because of the impact that it has on others, but because it fills your cup, like, be who you are and know that what other people say and do is without your control. Like, you're on your path, they're on theirs. But if you're a giving person, if you're a helping person, and that person doesn't take it, then you can't control that. But that doesn't mean you should stop.
Yeah, it's all about just trying to make the best of what you can do, given a pathway that goes and just understand much as possible before pursuing something else. It's all internal rather than external.
Maybe this idea that it's your fault when you're trying to give advice to somebody else has to do with, not giving advice to somebody if you don't have that aspect of your life already sorted out. Kind of like the Jordan Peterson rule, don't cast the stone if it's a problem that you haven't fixed in your own life.
Yeah, clean up your room before you criticize the world.
Absolutely, yeah. Like the whole, well, I mean, for my generation especially, at least for myself, like I grew up on YouTube, and like everybody became an expert very quickly on other people's actions, and they were never doing what they were criticizing. And it's just like, if you don't have the experience to speak from, what are you doing speaking? Like that's just ideology, and it's not real. It's not grounded in human worldly experience. You can't tell a person how to dance. You can't tell a person how to sing. You can't tell a person how to build a wall unless you've done that yourself, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think that's what Marcus Aurelius was getting at with that quote, Rugmo, that, don't be an ideologue, like Will said.
Yeah, what it reminded me of was just Jocko Willink taking ownership and his dichotomy of leadership. Taking it in a leadership context, you have to instruct them on their mistakes, but overall it is your fault if they can't succeed without your guidance, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the core values I have, like when I'm coaching, you've manifested everything in your life, good, bad, ugly, pretty. And that's a really powerful and really insulting statement all at once, because it says, look, if your marriage isn't healthy, it's because you failed. If your work isn't healthy, it's because you failed. And it also says, look, you have this opportunity to take total responsibility for everything that happens, because when there's something that happens outside of you, your reaction and your past actions have led to that. And you can either keep it going and you can stay in that cycle, or you can change how you perceive it and take it as this opportunity. Like Jocko says, good, like great, now we can work on ourselves more. Like there's room to expand. Because if you're perfect, life gets really boring.
There was a Led Zeppelin song, I think it was called Nobody's Fault But Mine. And it's kind of radical.
That's a good tune.
And I get a lot of resistance when I talk to people about, everything is your fault. If you get into a car accident or a car collision, that's your fault. If you get fired from your job, that's your fault. Even like if you get cancer, I mean, as radical as it sounds, that's your fault. And you got to own it.
I wouldn't go around a cancer clinic telling people this is your fault. Like, but I agree with you, like you manifested that in some capacity or another. And I mean, sure, there are people that are predisposed to coming out of the womb with like cancer, and there are definitely genetic hindrances to an extent. But if you're in general, healthy human being that is manifesting disease and ailment, and you're sick of this and you're sick of that, you're going to get sick because your subconscious brain says, oh, well, if I think I'm sick, I might as well become sick. And then it breaks down your immune system, and you start eating the wrong things. You don't work out, and all of a sudden you are sick. And there you go. You have your evidence to say, I'm special enough to suffer more than the rest of the world, and hopefully people will spoon feed me because I don't want to live my life. I don't want to take charge, and I don't want to take responsibility. And you know what? That's not a new thing, but that's something that a lot of people do, is they don't want to play the game.
It's not a new thing, but it is a new thing in this size. Like, it's never been this bad before.
That's because there's 7 billion of us, and we have the internet. That's only different.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
The only reason things seem worse now is because lots of us, and we have fake news, and we are in a flat in Sweden or China. We hear about it 10 minutes later, and it's like guess what? Propaganda. It's news, and it's not putting money in your bank account. And you can focus on that if you want and see how it pans out. I don't have Facebook, and I don't read the news. I have Stoic quotes on my phone for when I want to hear what someone has to say. I listen to Seneca and Aurelius and Epictetus because all of my friends are stupid and the news articles don't put money in my bank account. Maybe when I'm 60, I'll read the news again. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I had to unsubscribe to several commentary channels, and most of my YouTube lists are music channels, just really calm, classical, electronic music. The stuff
Heck
that kind of
yeah.
helps me focus and everything.
Well, I think it was like maybe 6 months ago I realized I had a playlist on Spotify. Like, if the lyrics aren't resonating with me, it doesn't last. If the first note of the song doesn't put me in a happy state, it doesn't last, because the subconscious brain takes every single thing that's going on and says, okay, well, this is who I am. And like, that's the first chapter of Jordan Peterson's book, right? I mean, stemming from meditations, but the subconscious symbolism processor that we have knows who we are and where we are. And if we don't accept what we are and put those things in place that tell us this is what we want, then we're just going to get automated. And it's depressing when you can't actually control your thoughts because you don't know that those rappers are spitting subconscious verse into your lower depths of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to listen to a lot of, I guess, angry rock is maybe that's the best way to describe it, like the hardcore, and maybe
Heavy.
Marilyn Manson and stuff. And it definitely paints your mind to, you start to see your world as an angry place.
Yeah, and the world is already an angry place. I don't need another reason to get back to my sacred space. Like, I want to see my yoga mat. I want to see my diffuser. I want to watch a good anime show that's got a good script and good characters. I want to play a video game with my friends working together. I don't want to compete. And I want happy-go-lucky, groovy, funky music that says, yeah, get in the groove, get in the funk, and make good art and make good life.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
I think when you're feeling and really getting into that, like getting in touch with anger and letting it control of you, it pulls you out of a flow state in a way.
Absolutely.
I'm just like recovering from a cold, and I noticed just before this cold took on, I was kind of being lazy. I was not exercising. I wasn't eating right. I was feeling a lot of resistance and anger from arguments with various people. And I kind of feel like there's this mind-body connection. You know, you have this connection to your immune system, which is very ancient. And if you're not taking care of your mind, your immune system become weak. Something slip in there like a virus and start replicating and taking over your nature.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. Like, we were talking about this the other day, and I said, like, I haven't been really sick since I got on my ketogenic diet and started working out consistently.
Absolutely. Like, once you live in intention, crap that in the past would have held you back and given you evidence to suffer, it's very hard to suffer. Like, I go into a very public workspace to do this tech repair, and there's this woman, she comes in, she's like, oh, don't come near me, I'm sick. And I look at her dead in the eyes and I say, don't worry about me, I have a good immune system, and you're not giving me your sickness. That's not an option. Like, there's no need for that to come into my body.
Yeah, you take care of yourself. I'm working on myself.
Well, there's also a very controversial idea called malingering, where people will act sick or they'll make themselves sick so that they receive an inordinate amount of attention or an extra amount of compassion because
Yeah.
they're sick.
That's exactly what we were talking about before with playing the victim. They just want sympathy points in the oppression Olympics.
Absolutely. I want to read this quote that kind of ties in at the end of book 10, the second last paragraph. Accustom thyself as much as possible on the occasion of anything being done by any person to inquire with thyself, for what object is this man doing this? But begin with thyself and examine thyself first.
Yeah, that one stuck out to me too.
Because, like, again, it just ties back to, like, you could react to the external world and you could slip into negative emotion. But would that help? Or is there something inside you that you're looking for evidence to justify? And like the issue is never the issue, you know, like if someone's yelling at you and firing you, it's not because they're a bad person. You need to take responsibility for what's led to this moment now and see what the best opportunity is, whether that's getting sick or staying healthy.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody can gain some kind of monetary or point or a reward from acting out of weakness or generating a malingering weakness, they're going to do that if they can find some incentive in.
Absolutely. And if like the overarching goal is I'm worthless, I know I'm worthless, life is suffering, and I'm a princess, and every interaction I've had has led to further proof that I should just be on welfare and disability, living in my house, playing video games, then they're going to find every excuse every single day to do that. And you know what, that works for a lot of people. And for some people, they say, you know what, maybe that's not good enough. And maybe I could investigate what's I'm doing wrong and stop blaming the world for my existence.
That kind of goes back to what we started off talking about. You're good enough so long as you're trying to act out your goal. And if you're not trying at all, you know, you're failing. You
I
don't
think
have to
that
hit it 100%.
I don't know if you guys have seen The Secret or read anything about the law of attraction, but these Stoic guys, they get it, you know, like there's nothing to complain about. Know who you are, do what you do, and improve your nature each day, and the universe will reward you. Like it's just that simple. You are what you are, and when you do what you need to do, life kind of unfolds in a very beautiful way for you, and nothing's put on your path that you weren't meant to interact with. And it's just like they got it then, we lost it now, and I think this is the time that a lot of us are rediscovering that there's a real meaningful way to live.
Treat your own life like an adventure, and every goal a quest.
Hell yeah. Slay the dragons.
Confront the dragon, get the gold, share it with the community.
Reap the rewards, and eat good bread. Make good art. I know you're keto, so you don't really get bread, but let me tell you, bread is dope.
Bread is the devil.
Man, I got a mile-high corned beef sandwich on a freshly baked loaf of bread at our local sandwich shop the other day. Oh, what a treat. There's just something nice about a well-made sandwich.
Sounds incredible, actually. I miss a good sandwich.
And then if you want to take manifesting destiny to a whole other level, this whole ketogenic diet's really great at first, and then you realize, like, wait, gluten's delicious. Could I maybe just, when I go to sleep, turn up my metabolism and burn off all those calories and get rid of all that crap so that when I wake up, I feel refreshed and I'm able to eat, you know, pancakes, and it's all within balance and moderation. Like, I don't eat crappy food every day. I'm usually eating quinoa wraps, but like, I like my beef, I like my tomato sauce, and I like my chicken nuggets. And when I want a treat, I have those treats, and I'm not binging on sugars and candies anymore. And for me, that was a huge issue for the longest time. You know, $40 at Bulk Barn, and 3 days later, all of it's gone.
Yeah, I'm like a weird... I'm a weird gluten intolerant, so I can't have any of it. So my like cheat food is French fries, but I'm like off the sugar, off the gluten. Only drink water.
I think it's a complicated thing, and each individual has to feel that out for
Yeah,
themselves.
for sure.
If you're eating candy, your body is going to convert that carbohydrate into ATP. And then if you have an excessive amount of ATP, and also it's going to produce other free radicals and hydroxyl ions. And so some people, maybe they're more sensitive to those things. And you gotta just listen to your body and go from there.
Absolutely.
Yes,
know your
for sure.
limit, play within it.
Yes.
Freaking love that quote.
So I recently watched this movie. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Free Solo. Alex Honnold was in it, where he's doing some free solo rock climbing in California.
I saw a trailer for it. I haven't watched it. Was it good?
So it's really interesting in comparison to these Stoic ideas, because the whole thing about it is he is a world-class rock climber who's attempting to climb a 3,000-foot route on El Capitan without any ropes. So one mistake, he's going to fall to his death. He's basically living on the edge of life and death. And his friends, who are also world-class climbers, and Jimmy Chin, who's one of the directors and producers, is kind of struggling, with this idea of recording it, because he doesn't want to lose his friend. But at the same time, he wants to encourage his friend to push himself to the limits. And what I found really interesting about the movie was Alex's embodiment of some of the Stoic ideas. He's got a girlfriend, but he is very distant from getting too attached, because he doesn't want to let all of the armor around his mind down, because he's got to stay focused 100% on his goal of complete focus on climbing this mountain. So he's taking meticulous notes. He's climbing it up and down with ropes, so he knows the route, studying every detail of it before he actually sets out on the path of doing it without any ropes. And it is definitely something I recommend watching and comparing to some of these ideas for meditations.
That's insane. It makes me think of this. It's funny because must be the year of watching rock climbing movies. I just watched Meru, which is Arxfin, and it's one of the hardest climbs in the world, and it was like first conquered by these guys. They recorded the whole documentary, and it had been attempted by like world-class climbers all over the world for 30 years, and no one could make it up. And the guy that went up with them when they were doing their last ascent, before they'd started the climb, he'd had this huge brain injury, and he'd had 3 different injuries that if any other person had got even one of them, they would have been a complete vegetable. And they ended up, so the second time they went up, he had trained for a year, and he got a stroke climbing up the mountain and pushed on. And by the time they got to the top, he had cleared a blood clot from his brain. And it's just like the human capacity, these films of actually witnessing people doing crazy shit is so inspiring. And it's insane.
Ass.
Wow.
I mean, the main difference there, he's probably using ropes. And so he has some level of safety, even though he's pushing himself to his limit. That goes back to what we were talking about. So long as you're trying, you got to try compared to your own limit of, this is what I can lift, and what percentage of that am I actually attempting to do? If it's 0%, you got to ask yourself, well, maybe I could try a little bit. If it's 5%, okay, that's better than 0, and so on. The whole spectrum of attempt.
Heck yeah. And then the other question, because now I'm thinking about guys that go to the gym and work out all the time. I'm wondering just how much importance having an actual goal comes to mind with, doing your best. Because the whole idea of comparing yourself to who you were yesterday and doing better today, well, what if who you were yesterday doesn't actually get you anywhere? And what if you're just improving on a concept that you've just kind of thought was the point? And I'm wondering if maybe one of you guys could share a quote that kind of helps me with that. Because like I see guys go to the gym and they're squatting in the squat rack 300-400 pounds all the time, but the minute their truck's in a ditch, they can't do anything to get it out of the ditch. And that's kind of why I avoid the church of gym. What do you guys think? Does it matter? Is there such thing as a wholesome, beneficial goal, or is everything that anyone does, is as long as they know they're doing it intentionally? Is that enough?
I think, well, for me,
I would
when it comes to
say-
working out, it was like comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. It was like the starting point. It's just like, I'm gonna do a little bit more than yesterday, and then eventually your goals manifest from that.
Yeah, I would say just try to ask yourself if you've improved on your goals. And as soon as you've done enough, they will become your default setting. And you can choose to do them less, or you can just continue to do more of them.
Or maintain them.
I guess like the question is like, for what purpose, you know? And if you're not asking, for what purpose am I improving on this? Well, this is what I've done. This is what I've opened. So I shall continue to do this. Like, that's great at first. And then, like you said, Rugmo, once you get to that plateau where you realize, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I've done, can I add into it? Because no matter what, like, I feel like human capability has always got room for expansion, and it's that stagnation, that fear I have of stagnation.
So, I mean, there's this idea that you can't stand still, because if you do so, you're going to be moving backwards. So you have to take 2 steps forward just to stay in the same place. And so once you reach your goal, you're going to likely set a new goal. And that might be only a small increment more more advanced than your previous goal, but it's just those small increments. I think the quote is inch by inch things are easy, but yard by yard things are hard. So you got to just slowly move forward. You know, if your goal is to squat 300 pounds, don't expect to squat like 400 pounds the next day. You know, maybe go 305.
What else in meditations do you all want to cover?
Okay, I think I had one other quote here written down. It was towards the end. When thou art offended at any man's fault, forthwith turn to thyself and reflect in what manner thou dost err thyself. So I thought that was pretty good. Don't look at another man's error as their error, just internalize that and say, hey, do I do that? I should probably stop then.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because like there's this quote, perception is projection, and it ties into the idea that the subconscious mind has no ability to process anything it hasn't in itself. And there's a rephrase of, instead of that guy's pissing me off, it's there's something about that guy that pisses me off about myself. And it being able to explore that is a really great mindful technique.
I heard a quote on the Joe Rogan Experience, I think, or some podcast, and like someone just said, there's something about that kid that I don't like about me. I'm like, yes, that's a stoic
Exactly,
idea right there.
Absolutely. Like, there is nothing wrong with anyone other than myself.
Yeah, so that was on the Dr. Phil episode, and he was talking about weakness. He was saying you can smell weakness in somebody, and that when you see those weaknesses in somebody else, you project them onto yourself. And so when you see somebody that's weak, that maybe, like I was saying earlier, they haven't showered, or they haven't even attempted to shave, or they've shaved and did a horrible job and there's nicks all over their face, you see it as like, you know, this guy didn't even try. And then you see things in your own life that you didn't try at.
Yeah, exactly.
There was this one quote kind of at the beginning. It goes, it was talking about doing what nature requires. Thou art formed by nature to bear everything. And I wasn't sure if he meant that, you know, we can endure everything, or that we're built with flaws and we have to take those flaws into account, like Adam and Eve, you know, being naked and standing on 2 feet, bearing their weakest parts to the world, versus, you know, you can't just go out into nature and expect not to get bitten by mosquitoes or freeze to death. So what did you guys think of that?
Yeah,
We're formed by nature.
when I read that quote, I first thought of his other line in one of the earlier books, which he said, "Nothing is formed by nature which you were not made by nature to bear." But now it seems like more of an expansion to that, after hearing you say that, to be like it's your duty to bear it, as well as not only are you formed by nature to bear it, but it's also your duty to bear it as well.
I want to bring up, because you said you can't expect to go out into nature and not be bit by mosquitoes and freeze to death and whatnot. And so 2 things. One, when I was camping last summer, I explained to people, no, I actually project an aura so large that no mosquito or black fly comes near me. And I'm half joking when I say that, and also I'm not. And then the second thing is the Wim Hof method, which is the guy who climbs up Mount Kilimanjaro in his underwear and says he can train anybody how to do the same thing. And he takes ice baths that he sits in for 3 hours that any other person would freeze to death in. And he manages to maintain an internal temperature of like 82 degrees or whatever it is that's healthy. And it's like, but how powerful are we? And can't we bear all of nature? And just how far can we push our manifestation of greatness?
That's a good question.
Like they say in the Bible, all the original men in the Bible lived 900, which is apparently quite short compared to the infinite lives we were built to have. But eating that apple in the Garden of Eden kind of screwed us over, and we got sent into the world. But Noah lived for 900, Epoch lived for 900, all of Noah's family, they all lived for 900 years, except for that one guy that got killed by his brother, but we don't talk about him much. It'd be interesting to see, like, as we start to step back into glory this coming century, to see just how much we can actually do. Like, we've got a man who could climb up a mountain in his underwear, and we've got people that say they can cure cancer in 2 hours, and it's like, well, how much can we actually do as humans? Like, I know, like, that, like I said the first time we met, I want to live forever and take over my own planet. And I say that as a joke, but I want to set the bar high enough that I don't limit myself, you know? And it'd be really interesting to see how far we can go when we really manifest glory.
There's this idea that Marcus brought up here at the beginning of the book too. You can endure the endurable if you treat it in your interest to do so. So, you know, when I read that, I'm thinking, if you're trying to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in your underwear and you don't think it's good for you, you're probably going to freeze. But Wim Hof is approaching that in a mind state of, this is a healthy thing to do, and I'm going to prepare myself in such a way to make it so that I don't freeze.
Yeah, what are the limits to the placebo effect? Like, if you believe you're gonna get better from a sugar pill, and it actually works, what else can you do with the power of consciousness and perception?
Like Tony Robinson on his like power weekends, he gets all of the people that make it to the end to walk across a bed of coals, right? And it's like, it's funny to even bring him up, but like if he can train people in 3 days to walk across fire, and we've got a man walking up ice, like what is it that the 99% of people are missing in the middle, you know?
Yeah, I was watching a Darren Brown special, and he invites some random person up onto the stage, and they eat a light bulb together. They just put a light bulb. They put a light bulb, and he like puts it in a napkin, and he smashes it with a hammer, and then they're just like having a chit chat. He's a hypnotist, and then eventually he just gives her a piece of light bulb, because he eats a piece of light bulb, and he's just like, see, it's fine. And he just puts a piece of light bulb on her tongue, and she eats it. It's just like, holy shit, there you go. You ate a piece of a light bulb.
I mean,
It's pretty crazy.
There's a quote in book 10 that talks about that. Hold on, let me try and find that. That's hilarious you bring that up. I mean, it doesn't talk about eating light bulbs specifically, don't get me wrong.
Is it about going to a funeral or something?
No, the healthy eye ought to see all visible things and not to say, I wish for green things, for this is the condition of a diseased eye. And the healthy hearing and smelling ought to be ready to perceive all that can be heard and smelled. And the healthy stomach ought to be with respect to all food, just as the mill with respect to all things which it is formed to grind. And when you think about light bulbs, like, they're just minerals that have been put together, and when you really lean into human capability, your stomach should be able to digest just about anything we can fabricate.
It's just sand.
Yeah, that's pretty much the point that he makes too.
Kind of
So-
insulting to Edison, but yeah, it's just sand.
I mean, there's a lot more going on there, but the elements included in that specific part of the bulb. It's just
Yeah.
sand.
Just some silica.
Just some minerals and stuff.
But you can't just, chomp on it without feeling the right placement in your mouth. Maybe you have to really pay attention to what you're doing so that you don't lacerate your gums.
Yeah, we're definitely not saying go eat light bulbs. It's a great diet and everyone should try it. And also, humans are capable of lots of things if we put our mind to it.
If you do, take some Pepto-Bismol afterwards.
Yeah. I think in the special he gives her a little bit of apple too. They eat it with a piece of apple. He's just like, as long as you listen to exactly how I tell you, then this isn't gonna hurt you. It's all gonna be fine. I do this all the time. He's like, this is how I learned how to do it, and just gave her a piece of apple. And it's
What other meals does he make?
In this book and a lot of the other books, Marcus Aurelius has talked about the gods of providence and fate. And I'm wondering if that is not really like an external spiritual entity so much as an idea of what our goals could be or what we could be. So fate would be like our ultimate, our ultimate being. And so everything you do is towards that, and you're being pulled towards that fate so long as you're attempting to do the things that would bring you there.
you have to interact with the fates in the proper way.
Here, this is an Epictetus? I don't know how to pronounce his name, but it's a quote from another Stoic. One that desires to excel should endeavor in those things that are in themselves most excellent. I think it kind of talks about, like, you need to know who you are and what you're good at, and don't try and push against a rock that isn't going to move, like nature. And you should do those things that you can excel at, not try and reinvent your own existence.
Aim for the highest good within your means.
Yes. Okay, I do have to tap out though, guys. All this talk of eating light bulbs, I'm gonna have to go make some breakfast.
Don't forget to try it with some apple first.
I do have apples.
Apples are good for you.
Full disclosure, I will be
Apple a day.
eating eggs.
Nice. I had eggs
Apple a
for
day.
breakfast.
Great chatting with you guys. Keep up the good talks. Talk to you again soon.
Peace out, dude. May the force be with you.
And also with you.